In furtherance of my goal of trying to improve my speaking voice, I'm going to be reading from a translation of Einhard's Life of Charles the Great. Uh, right. The Life of Emperor Charles, written by Einhard. Having made up my mind to write an account of the life and conversation, and to a large extent of the actions of my lord and patron King Charles, of great and deservedly glorious memory, I have compressed my task within the narrowest possible limits. My aim has been on the one hand to insert of everything of which I have been able to find an account, and on the other to avoid offending the fastidious by telling each new incident at wearisome length. Above all, I have tried to avoid offending in this new book those who have looked down upon even the monuments of antiquity, written by learned and eloquent men. There are, I do not doubt, many men of learning and leisure who feel that the life of the present day must not be utterly neglected, and that the doings of our own time should not be devoted to silence and forgetfulness as wholly unworthy of record, who, therefore, have such love of fame that they would rather chronicle the great deeds of others in writings, however poor, than, by abstaining from writing, allow their name and reputation to perish from the memory of mankind. But, even so, I have felt that I ought not to hold my hand from the composition of this book, for I knew that no one would write of these events more truthfully than I could, since I was myself an actor in them, and, being present, knew them from the testimony of my own eyes, while I could not certainly know whether anyone else would write them or no. I thought it better, therefore, to join with others in committing the story to writing for the benefit of posterity, rather than to allow the shades of oblivious to blot out the life of this king, the noblest and greatest of his age, and his famous deeds, which the men of later times will scarcely be able to imitate. Another reason, and not, I think, a foolish one, occurred to me, which even by itself would have been strong enough to persuade me to write, the care, I mean, that was taken with my upbringing, and the unbroken friendship which I enjoyed with the king himself and his children from the time when first I began to live at his court. For in this way he has so bound me to himself, and has made me debtor both in his life and death, that I should most justly be considered and condemned as ungrateful if I were to forget all the benefits that he conferred upon me, and were to pass over in silence the great and glorious deeds of a man who was so kind to me, if I were to his life to remain as unchronicled as unpraised, as if he had never lived, when that life deserves not merely the efforts of my poor talents, which are insignificant, small, and almost non-existent, but all the eloquence of a Cicero. So here you have a book containing the life of that great and glorious man. There is nothing for you to wonder at or admire except his deeds, unless, indeed, it be that I, a barbarian, and little versed in the Roman tongue, have imagined that I could write Latin inoffensively and usefully, have become so swollen with impudence as to despise Cicero's words, when, speaking about Latin writers in the first book of the Tusculans, he says, "If a man commits his thought to paper, he can neither arrange them well, nor write them agreeably, nor furnish pleasure of any kind to the reader. He is recklessly misusing both his leisure and his paper." The great orator's opinion would, perhaps, have deterred me from writing, if I had not fortified myself with the reflection that I ought to risk the condemnation of men, and bring my poor talents into peril by writing, rather than spare my reputation, and neglect this great man's memory. The preface ends, the book begins. Okay, so part of the issue with this is that it's sort of oration, because I'm reading and, articulating more than I normally would, lips and teeth and tip of the tongue and tip of the tongue, all this kind of crap. Yeah, but it's not conversational, and it's sort of coming out this fake, posh orator's accent. But nonetheless, I think that this might be an exercise that I need to do, to read a passage, see what stands out that I don't like that when I said passage, not 2 sentences ago. And especially in the first paragraph, there was a word that very much stood out to me that I did not like. But I'll listen to this now and see what I think, and tell me what you think, and we'll go from there. Okay, turning this off. That was a dramatic